Good evening, students. Rather, I should say good afternoon, all of you. Are you able to hear me? And then on that note, I will begin. Good evening, students.
Yes,
Rather, I should say good afternoon, all of you.
yes, I can
Are
now
you able
hear.
to hear me?
Yes,
And then on that note, I will.
I can now hear the volume, which means I think this is time I begin. So, welcome all of you to unacademy.com's YouTube page. So, today we are gonna do the newspaper session. Today, earlier in the morning, earlier in the day, I conducted a special class on unacademy.com, which was based on the current affairs of one of the months, which is May. But right now, today, I'm gonna do the current affairs session. So what all will it include? Right now, I will be taking on today's newspaper, which means I think this is time I begin. So welcome all of you. Right. So first of all, so Unacademy is actually India's largest e-learning platform. I think you might be aware we are also co-sponsors in the IPL this year. Yeah. Uh, This is a brief profile of myself. My name is Aritro Dasgupta. I'm an MBA in Forest Management from the Indian Institute of Forest Management in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. I've got a decade's work experience in the areas of teaching, training, strategy consulting, and in content writing. My experience has predominantly been in India, but I've also worked in the Middle East and been published in the USA. The last 5 years, I have been specifically into the coaching segment. So, rank holders to several entrance exams such as CLAT, DU, JAT, and CAT, they have been my students during this period. So, what all you can get from the Unacademy platform? First of all, you receive daily live classes, and I think I've also shared with you the Telegram channel of mine. So do join that Telegram channel. That'll be really beneficial to all of you. You also receive unlimited. So there are daily live classes. This is our channel. आप देख सकते हैं नीचे क्रैक मैनेजमेंट एग्जाम्स. तो इसको आप साइन कर लीजिए, इसको आप सब्सक्राइब कर लीजिए, फिर आपको सब कुछ हासिल हो जाएगा. इसमें you will be able to receive all the sessions. There are also live tests and quizzes. So just to show you on the right hand side, you can see the YouTube live chat window. This is where we, educators often engage with the students regarding various questions. Uh, the course content is structured from the head office, which is in Bengaluru, and of course, you receive unlimited access. The moment you are enrolled here, you can get all the classes. I told you, you can see archives of my previous sessions as well. This is a list of some of our top educators. You can take a look at their names, their watch minutes, and the followers they all have. In addition, uh, yeah, so you can also see the live classes basically. So you have these are the four of the educators in the country. But more than that, this is to show you a sample of how you receive the notifications. तो मान लीजिए किसी ने प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस मिस कर दिया हो, वो क्लास आप अटेंड कर सकते हैं. This is an older screenshot just to show, give you an idea of how things work. Similarly, this is a sample of the screenshot for the different batches. You can actually form full-fledged batches with individual educators. So how do you go about that? This is how you do it. प्लस बैचेस हम बोलते हैं इसको. तो नीचे आप देखेंगे, so these two teachers are, there's the same faculty who's taking the entire thing because it's just one educator. But ऊपर आप देखेंगे, it's not one subject but the entire course, which is why it is distributed among multiple trainers. So you can just take it through. uh, we have always believed that language should not be a barrier, which is why we are available in many different languages, 16 different languages to be precise, including English, Hindi, Malayalam, and Tamil. The schedule is one that works ideally for you, and of course, you can learn anytime, anywhere. You can interact with your educator to get your doubts cleared anytime. मैंने आपको दिखाया राइट हैंड साइड में द लाइव चैट विंडो, तो उस पर आप लिखिए. आई कैन सी देयर आर couple of students who are in the session now, so please feel free, put in your comments whatever, any questions you have, any general queries or about my subject, because I will be taking a general awareness. There is also a live poll option, which can be applied on YouTube as well, but it's more relevant on unacademy.com. So I would urge all of you who are viewing this video, come to unacademy.com, register yourself initially for free, take a look at some of the free classes. There are special classes that I take, and then do enroll as well. You are open to take demos. That's the big advantage. But after that, do enroll. You can get so many advantages, so many features. One of them being that whatever is taught in class, you can actually download all of that. You download that and take it ahead. I can see quite a few people are watching. 3 people are there, so do feel free. कुछ लिखिए. मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है interactive session. Write something for that. As I said, there are detailed PDFs. उसको आप download कर सकते हैं. YouTube में थोड़ा मुश्किल है. Unacademy.com it's much easier. Mm, but I would also urge you to join because of the fact that you can go give live tests and quizzes. So there is one thing called test that we give you, but you also have centrally proctored quizzes which cover the entire course. तो पूरे कोर्स को जब हम कवर करते हैं उसका क्या एडवांटेज है कि उसमें A to Z सारा आता है. Even if you haven't done the whole study, which is good, no problem, but go for the entire course, because then you understand where you lag, where you stand versus the rest of the country, what all aspects you need to improve, because you actually get a detailed broken up analysis of each of the individual subjects as well, right? So do take care of this particular aspect. Mm, okay, and I want all of you to go through this. मेरा कोड लिखा हुआ है नीचे AD09, so make use of this code AD09, and you can go through the slide. Both sides, the same thing is written, but just read up a little carefully. You will notice that per month costs are given. So the longer term, longer duration course you take up, the better it is for you guys. It'll be much more beneficial for you guys. Right. So on that note, I will move ahead to the next slide. एक बार पढ़ लीजिए all of you, and then I will start with today's content. So just say hello, all those who are there. Type in your points on the live chat window. I will be happy to interact with you guys. Right, I think you have all gone through this, और आपको clearly पता चल रहा है कि the longer term course you take, the better it is. So now I'm beginning with the key content of today's class, which is the daily newspaper reading. And as usual, I'm going to start with the Hindu. Let me get that newspaper. So as I promised you, it is the Hindu. That's the one which I'm gonna start with. Right. Right. So to begin with, first of all, there's been good progress on the border front. Yesterday, there were peace talks between India and China. This was done in Russia, in Moscow. These 8 countries, India, China, Russia, Pakistan, and 4 countries of Central Asia, namely Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. These 8 countries are together members of an organization called the SCO, which stands for Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So these 8 countries met recently for this SCO meeting, which is a usual thing. But within that, there was also a separate trilateral talks between India, Russia, and China, as well as a bilateral talk between India and China. So the Russian Foreign Minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, he was basically the intermediary, the interlocutor between the two sides. Russia acting as an intermediary for peace talks between India and China. Even Israel has offered to help. Of course, Israel has a slightly different take. It feels that business and trade should take precedence. That is what Israel firmly believes in. India and China also held bilateral talks. So India's foreign minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar, he met his Chinese counterpart, Mr. Wang Yi. So the two of them have decided a 5-point policy to take care of the present this thing. There has been shootout at the border for the first time in about 45 years. This is something that has been mentioned quite sternly by the Indian side, and as a response, China does has committed to taking a few steps to resolve this present crisis. Yes, hi Kainat, good to have you here. Do let me know whatever are your comments otherwise, or कुछ भी और अगर आपको बताना है, that'll be great. Shoot out at the border. Okay, so let me just quickly take you through a brief timeline of how things have worked during the present era this year. So May 5th was the first time when there was a scuffle reported after Chinese mobilization on the north bank of the Pangong Tso. Pangong Tso is a lake which is in Ladakh, bordering the LAC, or the line of actual control that divides India and China. The PLA transgressions and clashes with army reported at Pangong, Galwan, Depsang, Sikkim, and other points on the LAC. This happened between May 5th, which is the first day, till the 15th of May. Then on 6th of June, the corps commanders held the meeting, agree on a disengagement talks. The 4 rounds have further been held by the corps commanders. Corps are individual units, commanders, of course, leaders of each of them. Then again on 15 June, that's when the flashpoint really occurred, when 20 Indian soldiers were killed in clashes at the Galwan Valley. There was no word on Chinese casualties, though the Indian side did report 43 Chinese casualties. Right, Kainath? Then on 19th of June, the Prime Minister of India, he held an all-party meet. So involved the opposition, because here there's nothing called a opposition, because it's the matter of the country. So we need to all work together. So he held an all-party meeting where he assured that no one has transgressed India's borders. On 5th of July, the NSA, or the National Security Advisor, the most powerful NSA in India's history, at least in terms of the paper position, he actually has cabinet level status. That's the first time an NSA in India has got that status. So his name is Mr. Ajay Doval. He and Wang Yi, the Chinese external affairs minister, they agreed to expedite disengagement process. Troop buildup, however, did continue. Then in June and August, between June to August, there were 4 meetings, as I said, of the people from the WMCC, which is the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on the Indo-China border. August 20th and 30th, once again clashes on the south bank of Pangong. Indian troops dominate the peaks. 4th September, the defense minister Sri Rajnath Singh, he was also present in this meeting in Moscow. He returned, of course, before Mr. Jaishankar's meet, but he was there earlier. He met his Chinese counterpart in Moscow. The army on 7th September says that the PLA fired gunshots. Tensions escalated again, but now a 5-point policy has been discussed between the two countries. More on these exact 5 points a bit later, but I also want to discuss with you what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir. You are all aware that Article 370 was abrogated in J&K last year in August, and J&K now has union territory status because it is a UT. States in India have a governor who's more of a titular head, does not have any real powers. The chief minister has the real powers, but in union territories, some of them do have chief ministers, but even when you have a CM, you have an LG, or the lieutenant governor, who's appointed by the center. The powers of the LG are much more than that of a governor. Right now, Jammu and Kashmir does not have a chief minister. The state has, or the UT has not had a CM for more than 2 years, with president's rule being applied there. So who's the present LG? He just replaced the previous person. Mr. GC Murmu was in charge for about 9 months, but he's now become the CAG, or Comptroller and Auditor General. But now he has been replaced by Mr. Manoj Sinha, who's a former BJP MP from the state of Bihar. So he has unveiled a new grievance redressal system in Jammu and Kashmir. What is this grievance redressal system? Kainat, I've seen your question. Let me first finish this topic, then I will go to your question. It's a valid question you've asked. After reading newspaper, I always forget after a couple of days. Could you suggest how to retain information? I am fully with you on this. Can I just finish this topic? Then I will address your question if that's all right. So the new system that has been set up by the by Mr. Manoj Sinha is JKIGRAMS. Long name JK stands for Jammu and Kashmir. IGRAMS stands for Integrated Grievance Redressal and Monitoring System. Integrated Grievance Redressal and Monitoring System. This is basically an overall system. It also has a web portal and an app is planned. Not yet ready, but it is planned by which people in the state, any grievances they have towards the local government or any other governance issues, they can actually put in their points here. So this way a citizen can have direct contact with the people in charge, and there can be a good this thing. There will also be OTP authentication. OTP मतलब one time password. So उससे authentication हो जाएगा to resolve this issue, right? Okay, fair enough. Moving ahead. mm, so, Kainath, to answer your question, how to retain newspaper, best ways you take notes, please. तो आप ना मेरे classes हर रोज attend किया करो. This is not to sell myself, honestly. This is for the fact that because I know what is important in a newspaper. Newspaper बहुत सारे articles. अब मान लो सुशांत सिंह राजपूत डेथ हो, सुइसाइड हो, मर्डर हो, जो भी, आई एम नॉट गेटिंग इनटू दैट, रिया चक्रवर्ती अरेस्ट या कंगना रनौत's बिल्डिंग being destroyed, these are not questions that will be relevant for entrance exam purposes. In an entrance exam you have questions which have more of policy level importance. जैसे अभी मैंने बताया IGRAMS, दैट इज समथिंग ऑफ रियल इंपॉर्टेंस. तो स्टूडेंट को हमेशा पता नहीं होता क्या चीज इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो लेट अस गो थ्रू दैट. यू अटेंड एटलीस्ट 3-4 सेशंस ऑफ माइन. ऑलमोस्ट एवरी डे आई कंडक्ट these newspaper sessions. Tomorrow I am taking an off, but on Monday I will cover both tomorrow's paper as well as Monday's paper. तो उस दिन हम बहुत उस दिन आपको समझ आ जाएगा. एंड ऑफ कोर्स उसके बाद ऑलमोस्ट हर रोज चलेगा, तो आपको आइडिया लगेगा कि एग्जैक्टली व्हाट पार्ट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. दूसरी बात है, व्हेन यू रीड अलोन वो थोड़ा सा ना रिमेम्बरिंग में प्रॉब्लम हो जाता है. सो व्हेन यू रीड एंड यू लिसन, सॉर्ट ऑफ इट रिफ्लेक्ट्स. ऑल्सो कीप राइटिंग पॉइंट. जैसे मैं अभी बता रहा था, तो ये IGRAMS इसका फुल फॉर्म प्लीज लिख लीजिए कहीं पे. राइट. न्यूज़पेपर में क्या क्या पेजेस इंपॉर्टेंट, क्या आर्टिकल्स इंपॉर्टेंट, वो भी आपको जानना जरूरी है. उसको लिख लीजिए कहीं पे. दैट आई थिंक इज द बेस्ट वे. दूसरी बात है कि कभी भी रिटेंशन एक बार में अच्छा नहीं होगा. आई डोंट नो इफ यू ड्राइव अ कार, but first time when you started driving a car, I'm sure it was much more difficult. Over a period of time you got more proficient. The same is with reading newspaper. First 7-8 days, 10 days you may not remember much, but once what is happening is the same topic keeps repeating. If I had chosen, I could have not spoken about the LG of Delhi and all that stuff. It was not needed because I've explained all that before. But I spoke that again because I know there are new students who attend the class every time. That is why I mentioned about लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर्स इन यूनियन टेरिटरीज. ठीक है, तो ये सेम टॉपिक बार बार फिर बोला जाता है ना, एंड देन यू थिंक यस यस इट इज वेरी इजी. ठीक है कायनात, आई होप आई हैव बीन एबल टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन. डू लेट मी नो any other queries you have or regarding the method I explained to you, if that works for you. You can also attend my classes on unacademy.com. So उससे आपको again further idea मिलेगा. Anyway, moving on further, there is this report of the IIP. Are you aware of what is IIP? Let me put it down here on the chat window. IIP. This stands for Index of Industrial प्रोडक्शन. तो ये हर महीने रिलीज होता है, एंड दिस कंपेयर्स द इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्टिविटी इन कंपैरिजन टू द सेम मंथ लास्ट ईयर एज वेल एज 1 month बिफोर इन द सेम ईयर. सो फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ द डेटा फॉर जुलाई हैज बीन रिलीज्ड, दिस विल कंपेयर जुलाई 2020 with July 2019. So please write this thing down. The factory output has actually contracted by 10.4% compared to last year. 10.4% contraction of factory output as per IIP, Index of Industrial Production. So contraction, this is for July. So compared to July 2019, ये वाला जो डेटा है। अब इसमें कुछ कुछ चीज़ें हैं, मैं थोड़ा डिटेल में आपको बताता हूँ। माइनिंग एंड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग shrunk by 13% and 11% respectively. Electricity generation has contracted only by 2.5%, so that means we are using more of electricity. Moving on further, there has been a 57 wait. Okay, so this although this contraction 10.4 looks quite bad, this is still better than the 57% contraction that we saw in April. April, please understand, was the first month of the lockdown, so it was also a month where economic activity went to a complete standstill. So during that particular month of April, we actually had a 57% contraction. Comparatively, this 10.4% looks less bad. Mm, but again, in June, by June we had achieved 15.7% contraction. So 15.7 and 10.4, not much of a difference. So it seems while economies recovered compared to April, but compared to June, things could have been much better. Okay. So there is Mr. Sunil Kumar Sinha, who's from the Fitch Group. Have you heard what is Fitch? Let me see, Kainath, if you're aware what is Fitch. No idea. So basically, there is a group of organization called the credit rating agencies. ठीक है? So Fitch among the big three, including S&P. S&P stands for Standard and Poor, and Moody's. ठीक है? Credit rating agency क्या होता है? They rate the credit worthiness. So these are very important financial organization, not a bank, but a non-banking financial organization. They basically financial sector, you can say. So they basically rate your credit worthiness. If you are in the A category, it means you are an ideal person to receive a loan. If you are B, you are stable. C, it means to be avoided, it's negative. D means blacklisted. मैंने जो आपको बताया, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's actually much more complex. So anyway, Mr. Sunil Kumar Sinha, who belongs to the Fitch Group, I'm going to quote what exactly he says. He says the sharp recovery witnessed in May and June is now becoming somewhat flat-ish. So May and June it did recover somewhat, but June things once again turned out bad. I'm going to move to page number 8. फिर मैं वापस आ जाऊंगा इस पेज पे, because इसी टॉपिक का फर्दर डिस्कशन है यहाँ पे. कहाँ गए हम? Yes. Manufacture of pharmaceuticals, there is one industry which has actually done well. It has seen a 22% growth. You can see pharmaceuticals doing quite, being quite in demand now. Tobacco products also posted a 6.1% growth. These were the only two sectors, tobacco production and pharmaceuticals. These were the only two in terms of manufacturing which did well this month. Other sectors such as automobiles, paper, and beverages, they continued to see contractions of over 30%. Textile reduced by 14.8% and garment manufactured by 28.7%. Textile and garments, please understand, this is the second largest employer in India after agriculture. So as I think you might be aware, India witnessed 23.9% economic contraction in the last month. That of course does not augur well. And if textile cannot recover, that could lead to major job losses and employment problems in the near future. Right. There is Swami Agnivesh who has passed away. He was a very important social activist. As an activist scholar, he fought all his life against bonded labor and slavery, especially child slavery. He was from the Arya Samaj, and later on he also started his own organization called the Arya Sabha. He had also been an MLA from Haryana. back in 1981. He was also the president of the World Council of the Arya Samaj between 2004 to 14. So, right. In fact, in 1977 as well, he had been made minister. He had been in the Haryana Assembly, and he was made education minister after 2 years. So he passed away at the ILBS, or Institute of Liver and Biliary Sciences in Delhi. The DGCA, which is the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, they have written to Indigo, the airline, against violations which were made by one of the TV crews. I'm not sure which channel, but maybe several channels were involved, and how a lot of the norms were actually broken by them in trying to. I think Kangana Ranaut was also on that same flight. So while sort of meeting Kangana Ranaut, they had this thing. So a lot of these protocols were removed. So the DGCA has written to uh, Indigo to take strong action on this case. Kainat, are you still there? You haven't been writing for a while now. Please tell me whatever, any doubts you have. Anyway, moving on to the second page. So even Delhi has an LG, because Delhi too is a union territory, and so Delhi is one of the three union territories and one of the two actively which has a chief minister. But it also has an LG, Mr. Anil Baijal. He has opened a control center at the NDMC Smart City. एंड मोस्टली इट्स लोकल न्यूज़ के बहुत क्वेश्चंस आते नहीं हैं, तो मैं इस पे नहीं ज़्यादा चर्चा करना चाहता. बट द डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर ऑफ दिल्ली, मिस्टर मनीष सिसोदिया, he had visited two polytechnic institutes. Polytechnic, I don't know if you're aware. So these two were in one in Dwarka, one in Rajokri. I don't know if you're aware of polytechnic. Polytechnics are for vocational education. So this includes not the formal education that you and I are part of, but into manual labor, skilling basically. So he has spoken about Mr. Sisodia about adopting courses that meet the market needs. Mm. Sticking with Delhi, the Transport Minister of Delhi, Shri Kailash Gehlot, phase two trials are now going to be starting for contactless e-ticketing app, which is known as Charter, Chartr, not Charter with an ER, but Chartr. So this will be, as I said, a contactless e-ticketing app to reduce contact between people. So this will be used on buses and other local metro. As of now, is out of it, but buses this will be used in. So ticket booking it can be used for. And in fact, this app can also be used for tracking. Yes, Kaina, that's great if you're listening. So this can also be used for tracking the different zones, right? Where is a bus right now, so that we know how much more we have to save. I so wish it was there when I was in college. We used to spend long hours waiting for buses. So this is a real boost, I think. Gurugram in Haryana, part of the NCR, has recently restarted alcohol being served on table. However, there has been a poor response to renewal of bar license. Many of them did not renew their bar licenses earlier when the first lockdowns itself were announced. Now, only 35 of the 91 licenses have been sent in for renewal. So that does not bode well, because many of them are not sure. Because remember, right now we are in an experiment till 30th September. If things work, only then will it continue. The alcohol being served. So many are not sure. They want to see the others, because alcohol, these liquor license, they are pretty expensive often. Um, so this is, I was talking about the West zone, where 35 out of 91 have applied. Meanwhile, in the East zone, only 66 out of 96 have reapplied, out of which 29 have already been given the same. Right? That is, of course, for Gurugram. So Mr. Ajay Makan, who's a former union minister, he has been declared as the Congress chief for the state of Rajasthan. He's the general secretary of the All India Congress Committee. He had recently visited Rajasthan. Mm. Right, there is also an interview with right now Rajya Sabha MP. He's also former two-time Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Mr. Digvijay Singh, because there are bipoles being planned in Madhya Pradesh. So uske liye. So these things again may not be very relevant for your exam, but what is relevant is the upcoming bipoles. I don't know if you're aware of this term bipole. Are you aware of this term bipole? Bipole का मतलब है a re-election for a seat in a seat where the result has been declared null and void. Why does it happen? Is, for example, in India we have something called an anti-defection law. So if somebody has been elected as an MP or an MLA from a certain party, if he or she changes the party midway, then that seat gets cancelled. There are some provisions where anti-defection law does not apply. However, this is not one of those cases. So in Madhya Pradesh, where Congress was in power for 15 months, now the BJP has been in power for the last 6 months, and because in MP there are total 230 seats in the assembly, 27 of them are now vacant. Among the remaining 203, BJP has the maximum number of MLAs. I think it's around 107, which is why they are in power. But these 27 seats will need a re-election, and if Congress wins a significant number of them, which takes their tally to above 115, then they can once again stake claim to forming government. Mm, now, Mr. Mukul Vasnik, he's the one who has been put in charge of Madhya Pradesh. Now, Congress has already named 15 candidates out of these 27 seats. In fact, they have already named all the candidates for the reserved seats. Some of them are reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, though mostly SC, because this area of MP does not have many tribal seats. So mostly scheduled castes. So those seats have already been announced. The BSP will also contest all 27 seats. They have announced 8 candidates. The BJP is yet to announce the candidates. Right, most of them are in northern MP, in the Gwalior Chambal region, because I think you are aware, Mr. Sindhia, he left the Congress to join the BJP. So many of those who left were loyal to him. Right, moving again further to the next page. So we have the editorial. The editorial is a very important page in the newspaper. So there is an article about sex workers today, rather innovative article, and about how they are now using face masks and hand sanitizers to carry out their work. These kind of articles again may not be very relevant for your entrance exams, but there's also an article on how the situation in the Himalayas now resembles a game of chess between India and China. So the writer, his name is Mr. Stanley Johnny. He's from the Hindu, and he says that India has two options. One is walk into a trap that has been laid for them. The other is to learn from the 1962 event. So these are two options that India has. Now, I actually want to talk to you about a third article. I'll read out to you the headline. It says, "Smothering the Housing Rights of the Urban Poor." उसके नीचे लिखा है सब हेडलाइन में, a court order on Delhi's some slum dwellings threatens to undo the promise of the right to housing offered in earlier verdicts. This article has been written by Mr. Matthew Idicula. He is a lawyer and researcher on urban issues and a consultant with the Center for Law and Policy Research. So basically, what he talks about is recently there has been a Supreme Court order which states that all the residents of Jhuggi Jhopdi clusters, they are known as JJ clusters, who stay near the railway tracks, because the railways will need to be broadened. This leads to environmental pollution as well, because I'll come to that in a while. So they have ordered that all these jhuggi jhopris be demolished and the people be rehabilitated, or being asked to be removed from here. This is something which has drawn a lot of ire, a lot of criticism, and these people, of course, who are the poorest of the people, which is why they are living in unorganized, illegal colonies, they are protesting against this. This order has especially been for Delhi, but it could eventually apply to other cities and other states as well. Now, what exactly he says, the writer, it's his views, is that this is something because Article 21A of the constitution talks about the right to life, but it also includes right to livelihood, which was actually decided in one of the earlier legislations in another state. Now, why was this done? This was because of the environmental pollution case. Let me just talk to you about exactly the uh, yeah, so Environmental Pollution Authority, Prevention and Control, they are the ones who actually filed this case, because what is happening when slum dwellers stay near railway tracks, they obviously need to carry out all their personal functions, and those things do take place on the tracks or nearby. So this goes against the concept of fighting against open defecation that India is strongly building towards. They are also doing a lot of this also leads to certain fear of accidents often happening. So all of this has been the reason why this has uh, been reported. So this writer, he's concerned that this could lead to massive loss of life and livelihood for the people who are staying there, for the poorest of the people, and where will they go? That is a concern that he shares. Moving on, usually the editorial page has a lot of stuff to discuss. Today, not too much of it. Usually Saturdays are a bit light on that front. Moving on to further local news, in the south, cases are climbing up, COVID cases. So Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh uh, doing particularly badly on that front. The rest mostly I have already discussed with you guys. Okay, now there is this need about the National Law School. I don't know if you've heard of it. In Bengaluru, there is this law college which was recently confirmed as the best in India by the NIRF. NIRF is the official rating system by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, now named the Ministry of Education. So it was decided that National Law School of India University is the best law school in India as per NIRF. NLISIU, however, has done a complete U-turn. So NLSIU, along with more than 20 other law colleges, national law colleges, they are part of a consortium named as the CLAT Consortium, which organizes an exam every year called the CLAT. Are you aware of this exam? So this is for entry, just like you have NEET for all the, shall we say, medical colleges. Similarly, for law, we have CLAT consortium for all the national law schools. CLAT is the exam. So this consortium looks into the exam pattern. In fact, last year itself, the exam pattern and the format was changed. Now, out of these 20 odd colleges, Bangalore, which is the best, has opted out of the CLAT exam. And this has been a sudden decision, and does completely reversing the preparation of thousands, tens of thousands of students this year. Their exam is called the NLAT, or National Law Aptitude Test, National Law Admission Test. Though there was a petition filed in the Supreme Court against this thing due to the harassment to the students, and of course going against the in prevailing norms. The Supreme Court has, because the National Law School has gone ahead and planned, so the Supreme Court has approved the National Law School of Bangalore their decision to hold this exam. However, they have written out against declaring the results. They have said that the results should not be declared and admission should not be announced based on the NLAT. Okay, so maybe the final admissions will be based on CLAT. We don't know as yet. We do not have complete clarity, but right now they can't declare their exam. Right? Okay, moving further ahead. So one of the ministers in Kerala, Mr. E.P. Jayarajan, who's the industries minister, he's part of the ruling LDF, Left Democratic Front, which is in power in Kerala. He has tested positive for COVID-19. Um, Kerala, there is the Kerala has is the home to coalition governments. They've always had coalition governments for about 4 decades. But unlike several other states, here the coalitions are pretty much rock solid. They remain constant, and every 5 years you usually have a change in government. One side is the LDF, comprising CPI, CPIM, NCP, JDS, and a few others. The other side you have the UDF, or the United Democratic Front, led by the Congress, also having IUML, RSP, the Kerala Congress, and again LJD and a few other smaller parties. So Kerala goes to elections next year, and so that's why there is a lot of movement in Kerala regarding election fervor. And by the way, Kerala too has a couple of bipoles. I told you about bipoles. Total 65 bipoles in India are scheduled. 64 in assembly segments, one for the parliament. And these bipoles, the Election Commission of India has confirmed, along with the Bihar state elections, they should all be done maximum by 29th of November. Kerala, however, there has been all party meet comprising the LDF, the UDF, and BJP, which is like the third group here. They have together agreed on BIPOs being cancelled. Now it is up to the Election Commission of India and the central government whether it is cancelled or not. The reason for them asking for cancellation is due to COVID-19 and because they do not want further crowding of people. They are also averse to, they are also saying that within another 6 months you're going to have elections anyway. So there is no hurry to fill that seat. Even if it does stay vacant for a few months more, that should be okay. Generally in India, within maximum 6 months, a seat has to be filled. More than 6 months, no seat can remain vacant. However, these are extraordinary circumstances because right now the DMA has been applied, which is the Disaster Management Act, and that's where these all the parties seem to be on the same side. Kainath, I hope you are able to understand. I hope my session is helping you with understanding what all is relevant for newspaper, and I hope, just like you asked, so after today, your newspaper retention does improve. Right, I can see another person is watching right now. Who's that? Do send in a comment. जो भी है जरा comment डालिए. Let's have a discussion. Any questions you have? Kerala is also said to have its municipal and panchayat elections. This is again something that the ruling LDF and the opposition UDF want to be postponed, not cancelled, maybe postponed and held alongside the state elections. This is where the third faction, which is the BJP, is not willing. They do not want the panchayat or municipal elections to be postponed. Right, fair enough. Mr. Rawat, General Bipin Rawat, he's actually India's first ever CDS, which is Chief of Defense Staff. So he has briefed the parliamentary panel on what exactly is the 5 point plan with China, 5 point action plan. So right, so his name is yes, yes, thank you so much. So have you heard of General Bipin Rawat and the CDS position? General Bipin Rawat is the CDS. Are you aware of this? CDS का मतलब है Chief of Defense Staff. So until recently, so till last year, India obviously has three units in the military: Army, Air Force, and Navy. All of them obviously have a head, and all of them report to the President or the Prime Minister for that matter. President is on theory, but in actual parlance, it is the Prime Minister that they report to. However, now another person has been added as an intermediary, who is a Chief of Defense Staff, who will actually be the coordinator between all the three, Army, Air Force, and Navy. So that is going to be Bipin Rawat. He's not senior to those three. They are not reporting to him. He's more of a coordinating person. In fact, all the four, that is the three heads and the CDS, they are all four-star level, which means they are equivalent to each other. Right? Okay, the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, is set to visit Bihar, and even if he doesn't visit, he is set to announce lots of projects for Bihar. Bihar, of course, is going to elections in November, as I told you, and Bihar is another state just like Kerala with multiple political parties. There are more than 10 political parties which have some presence, which can garner at least 2 or 3% vote share. So I don't know, Kainath, which city you're from, but there are different states in India which have different political system. Now, if I look at Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, for instance, or Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, even Chhattisgarh, these are states which are direct Congress versus BJP fights, right? To an extent, you have BSP in MP and Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, all of these. But by and large, it is a straight Congress BJP fight. So it's just two big political parties. On the other hand, there are some states which have a few big parties, like in Maharashtra, you could add NCP and Shiva Sena. In West Bengal, you could add Trinamool Congress and the Left Front. In Bihar, there are about a dozen parties which command at least 2 or 3% vote share, which is not a lot, but it can be significant between winning an election or not. So in Bihar, what is important right now is forming the right alliance. Who all to include in your alliance? Too many alliance partners could cause instability. There is the fear that one of them or two of them could change sides after an election is done. But on the other hand, if you don't include them, there is the fear of them cutting into your vote share, because a lot of times there are similar parties with a similar vote share. So that is why all the groups right now are formulating their seat sharing. So one of those parties is LJP, which is the Lok Jan Shakti Party, which has 6 MPs right now in the Lok Sabha. Um, it has for long been headed by Mr. Ram Vilas Paswan, who's a union minister, but his son Chirag Paswan is now the face of the party, and he's calling the shots when it comes to the local governance within the state of Bihar. Mr. Chirag Paswan wants the polls to be postponed due to the COVID-19 and of course flood issue as well in the state. So LJP is not very happy, it seems, with some of its alliance partners. They are very loyal to the BJP, but not to some of the others. So there is a lot of talk right now of changing alliances and stuff. Moving on to another part of India, in the northeast of the country, Nagaland has long seen separatist movements. You know, there have been many separatist movements where Nagaland wants to form a separate country, a part of Nagaland wants to merge with Myanmar. So we've had these issues for the last several decades, and there have been talks now as well. But a couple of Naga groups are now extremely positive. They are saying that the peace talks are almost concluded, and there will soon be complete peace in Nagaland. We can only hope for the best when it comes to peace. Going back to China, China has confirmed its military, which is the PLA, People's Liberation Army. They had recently abducted 5 youths from Arunachal Pradesh who had strayed into Chinese territory. Unknowingly, they strayed in because that area is mountainous. There are no formal boundaries. It's quite a porous boundary. So these 5 youths have been, shall we say, had been abducted. But now, after much protest from the Indian side, including Union Minister Shri Kiren Rijiju, who's an MP from Arunachal Pradesh, so after all, he's the Youth Affairs, Sports and Youth Affairs Minister. The PLA has agreed to return these 5. This is surely another sign of peace returning between the two countries. India and China will also hold another round of brigadier level talks. Brigadier level, as in the top military men themselves. So not a political this thing, but among the military class. Okay, now moving on further. Okay, have you heard of this thing called FCRA? Let me ask you this question. Are you aware of FCRA? This has been much in the news recently. A couple of international bodies were denied the right to invest in India. Similarly, the Gurudwara in Amritsar, the Golden Temple, Shri Harmandir Sahib, this has been approved given the FCRA nod. So, what exactly is the FCRA? Any idea? You do know? Okay. So FCRA stands for Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010. ठीक है. So ये क्या करता है? ये regulate करता है all kinds of foreign investment. However, it does not regulate foreign commercial investments. It looks into the non-profit investments. That includes things such as NGOs or associations or even political parties receiving funding. ठीक है. तो FCRA में क्या है? Couple of bodies were recently barred because they were accused of trying to convert people to another religion, which is again, religion should be one's personal choice, personal matter. So that is where this body found it somewhat wrong. The Gurdwara in Amritsar, this has been given the nod. They can now receive foreign donation, which was not possible until now. There have been question marks. There was an RTI which was issued An RTI request was filed to get understand the donations into the PM Cares Fund. You may have heard of the PM Cares Fund, which was started during the COVID-19 pandemic when it first started. Mm, yes, that's correct, Kainath. Very good answer. You have answered FCRA. Are you from commerce background by any chance? Very good answer anyway. So again, you don't need to be so underconfident. You were saying that you don't remember things. It does seem that you are, unless you've suddenly Googled. I hope that's not the case. So if you've done it yourself, that's really impressive. Anyway, so this RTI request that was filed, the CAG, which is the Comptroller and Auditor General, this body has confirmed that FCRA nod is not needed for the PM Cares. PM Cares is exempt from foreign donation rules because this is for a positive purpose. Recently, the state of Mizoram held municipal elections, municipal and panchayat elections. But there has suddenly been a spike in cases. The MNF is ruling, is the party in power in Mizoram. The Congress is the main opposition. Congress has blamed the sudden spike due to this elections taking place. In the state of Odisha, a new package has been announced by the Chief Minister. This is a 300 crore rupees package for farmers because farmers have lost a lot recently. In addition to the pandemic, which has affected everyone in the country somewhere or the other, the the thing is, there have also been floods. So thousands of acres of arable land has been washed away by flooding, and many people have died as well. And a lot of crop has been destroyed. That is why this 300 crore rupee package has been announced by the CM. Can you tell me who is the Chief Minister of Odisha? Odisha's CM is at present the longest serving CM in the country with 5 consecutive terms. He's completed over 20 years as CM of Odisha. His first 2 terms were in coalition with the BJP. This is his third consecutive on his own. Can you tell me who is that? I'll just switch off the AC for a while. Right. Who's the Chief Minister of Odisha? You didn't answer my question. Naveen Patnaik, very good answer, excellent answer. He's from the BJD. From the BJD. BJD stands for Biju Janta Dal. Biju Patnaik was his father, very important political leader from the state, was from the Janta Dal. Later, Naveen Patnaik founded a separate party. Right, so 300 crore is the package that has been summoned by the Chief Minister. The ICMR, have you heard of the ICMR? Can you tell me the full form? Just like FCR, you told me. So impress us again by telling us the full form of ICMR. Very good, excellent answer. ICMR stands for Indian Council of Medical Research. Very good answer. So the ICMR has confirmed that there may have been around 6.4 million cases which were unreported in India in the month of May itself, because the lockdowns at that time testing was much less, and now we are seeing every day more than 90,000 cases. This is not because it has suddenly gone for a toss, the number of cases, but this is because they were probably underreported earlier, and also because of the sero surveys. We are having lots of sero surveys. Sero surveys, I think you know, these are rapid tests to understand. So basically, many people through their serum, we are able to understand that they do have what is called antibodies or antigen to fight COVID-19, which means they must have been infected at some stage. Looking at the percentage of people who have faced this, it is clear, the ICMR says that there must have been more than 6 million cases by May itself, which got undetected. Right. The Union Health Ministry has urged the state of Maharashtra to continue sending medical oxygen to Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh's hospitals, some of them are dependent on Maharashtra for supplying this same. But this was recently stopped because the demand had also reduced. But there is once again demand, because obviously COVID-19 requires a lot of medical oxygen. There has been a bit of sparring between two of the ministries, the mines ministry versus the forest ministry. So we have the Ministry of Mines, and the other is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The latter says that the former from now on has to pay a certain fee for fees usage, because what is happening is a lot of the minerals are found below the forest land, and so while extracting minerals they will have to pay a certain fee. In many cases they are denied altogether, but in often when it is taken out, there is some form of this thing that is done, right? Some form of fee that has to be paid. There is going to be a panel which will set up under the chairmanship of the Defense Minister Shri Rajnath Singh, which is going to look into the corporatization of the OFB. The OFB stands for Ordnance Factory Board. Ordnance stands for weapons manufacturing, basically. A law panel which was set up recently and headed by the BJP MP Shri Bhupender Yadav. They have decided that virtual courts must remain. वर्चुअल कोर्ट का मतलब है कि जहाँ पे ऑनलाइन courts are being run. So due to the pandemic, because many of the courts were closed, this is how it was working. Now that we are having some work in the real courts again, there was talk that virtual court should be stopped. But however, this panel has decided that we must continue with these boards. There is another campaign which has been launched known as the Streets for People. The idea is that the streets of Indian cities, they should be more pedestrian friendly. Right now they only cater to vehicles and cars, but there are no proper footpaths, no proper areas for people to walk in. And this is something the Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry has spoken out about. Can you tell me who is the Union Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs? Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs. He's he's also from the BJP. Let's see if you can answer. HUA, Housing and Urban Affairs. I'm awaiting the answer anyway. His name is Mr. Hardeep Puri. I can understand there is often a lag between me speaking and you writing. So even if I've answered, don't worry. While you answer, uh, I'll consider that. There is a writer called Mr. Hari Kunzru. He has just come up with a new book called Red Pill. That is his sixth book. There has been an interview of him. Basically, Saturday, as I told you, is a relatively light day, so we have a lot of these feature articles. There is also this thing about going overboard with clean living. Um, because of the pandemic, people are doing excessive of cleaning, which is again not a very good thing, because there needs to be something of a natural setting. There's also an article by Mr. Rahul Verma, who writes every Saturday. He's a food critic. So he has written about different food styles and how people are not being able to venture out to dhabas because travel has pretty much gone out of the window. And so he speaks about recently ordering from a high-end hotel, a five-star hotel. I think, yeah, it's the Oberoi in Gurugram. He ordered Amritsari kulcha, Amritsari machi from one of them. So this is rather, shall we say, rustic food, but from the big restaurants. Because what's happening if you can't go to the highways come to you. That's what he has spoken out about. There is also something else that he ordered. Okay, moving on to international pages, there is one extremely significant topic I want to discuss with you. I'll just turn on the AC again. The weather is strange. If you turn on the AC, it gets cold. If you shut it, it gets warm. Okay, his name is Shri Hardeep Puri. That's okay, Kainath, no problem. Okay, yeah, so as I said, there is extremely significant news, and a couple of days back, I shared this news, and you may have also read it somewhere else. The United Arab Emirates, so the UAE, has finally established diplomatic and trade ties with Israel. That was a momentous move. It became one of the first Arabic countries, and one of the first Arabic countries, but also the first from the GCC, which is a group of the wealthy oil-producing nations to establish relations with Israel. Following on from UAE's decision, even Saudi Arabia, which is again a regional power, Saudi Arabia has also allowed aviation. They have allowed airspace of Saudi to be used by Israeli planes. I just use the charger. And now there is a third country, or you could say a second country, because Saudi has just used allowed aviation rights, airspace rights, but a second country from that region which has established diplomatic ties with Israel, and I'm talking of Bahrain. Bahrain has always been one of the most liberal countries in that area. Unlike its neighbors like Saudi, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, UAE, Bahrain does not have much of oil or natural gas. But Bahrain is wealthy because of tourism. So basically, it shares a land bridge with Saudi Arabia, King Fahd Causeway. So Saudi से Bahrain तक 27 किलोमीटर का एक bridge है over the waters. So Saudis, they love traveling to Bahrain, and that is the tourism economy is pretty strong in Bahrain. Uh, Bahrain, meanwhile, has decided to normalize relations with Israel. This was actually published in Cannes, which is Israel's public broadcaster, similar to Prasar Bharati in India, which handles Doordarshan and All India Radio. Uh, so another Israeli reporter, Mr. Rafael Ahren, he reported on the Times of Israel. In fact, Donald Trump, the president of USA, he has been responsible. I mean, he led the team to as a mediator between the UAE and Israel relations, and which is why Donald Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 2021 by Norway. Um, this is another feather in the cap of the administration in trying to get Bahrain on side. Right. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom, you might be aware, UK went through the painful Brexit process. Sir will have to leave to attend a 3 p.m. session. Okay, fair enough, no problem. But fair enough, you can come back and attend the recording of the session. Right. United Kingdom, you might be aware, has gone through the painful Brexit process. It is still finalizing some of the last steps, whether it's going to be a no deal Brexit or some kind of a deal will be applied. The United Kingdom, however, has signed its first major business and trade deal since the Brexit was formally executed this year. This deal is with Japan, and I will read out to you the exact figures. It is a 15.2 billion pound or $19.5 billion deal. Uh, with Japan. This actually replicates the EU-Japan deal as well. The UK and Japan together, two of the largest economies worldwide. Japan is the world's third largest economy, while the United Kingdom is the fifth largest economy. The two of them combined would be the world's, again, third largest economy, because China, which is second, is much above. Um, right? North Korea, which we know is a dictatorship, they have issued a shoot to kill order to prevent the virus. That's what USA claims. It's not official. Microsoft, meanwhile, claims that hackers from Russia and China are targeting the US vote. They want to influence the US vote in a certain style. Okay, fair enough, Kainath. Bye. You can actually keep this session open. Maybe you can mute it, but you can keep this open and go to unacademy.com and attend the other session on your tab. On the other tab, you can open it. If you're using on laptop, this is something you can probably consider. But anyway, there is also the intra-Afghan talks which are going on. So Afghanistan, you might be aware, Mr. Ashraf Ghani has won a second term as president, but they are at odds with the Taliban. Taliban has been much weakened from the pre-US invasion times, but they keep on resurging. They just never die out. Around Kandahar is their strong belt. There is also a third body, which is the Loya Jirga, which is a traditional body of traditional tribal elders. So the Loya Jirga, the government, which is internationally recognized, and the Taliban. The three of them are set to have peace talks in Doha, in Qatar. That is going to be the neutral venue so that all sides of the picture can be well understood. In US, there are lots of bushfires. 15 have already died tragically, and about 500,000 people have been evacuated, primarily in the western state of California, but also in other western states, Pacific coastline states of Oregon and Washington. The EU and UK Brexit talks are not going very smoothly. The EU stands united. They do not want to give UK much leeway in this process. So I'm done with the international page. Moving on to the business page, after which I will enter the sports pages. Sports, there's something interesting today. The English Premier League restarts. It feels as if it was never out. But anyway, I'll talk about that later. Right. So the GDP is going to shrink by 11.5% as per Moody's. I told you about Moody's, one of the big three of the credit rating agencies. The SP Group, which is Shapurji Palonji, which is headed by the Mistry family and Cyrus Mistry himself, was former head of the Tatas. They are at loggerheads with the Tatas, and there is a share pledge block which has been set up by the Tata, which Mr. Mistry says it is vindictive. He had the Bisri Group had earlier planned to raise funds through the same. The SEBI, I don't know if you're aware of SEBI. SEBI stands for Securities and Exchange Board of India. So SEBI is the regulatory body for all the stock markets in this country. They want to upgrade their electronic or digital facilities because they feel there is a need for the same. So a couple of companies have been shortlisted. Overall, 8 companies have been shortlisted for this process because with transactions going increasingly digital, SEBI feels that all of these calculations will be, a lot of the stock market work will be online. So it needs to have an even better portal than it presently has. Okay. So who are these 8 companies? Let's take a look. One of them obviously is Bharti Airtel. There is also Wipro. There is TCS. There is SIFI. SIFI, of course, major Indian company. Also, there are lots of other international companies whose India brands, such as HP India, Hewlett Packard India. There's NTT India, IBM India, and finally Orange Business Service India Technologies. So 8 companies. I'll repeat the names: Wipro, TCS, SIFI, Bharti Airtel, NTT India. Then you have Orange Business India, IBM India, and HP or Hewlett Packard India. These are the 8 companies which have been developed. The center has released a post-devolution revenue deficit grant. This is worth 6,195 crore rupees. This amount is going to be distributed to, while the states are wrangling for delayed GST dues, this is what the center has. It has not been able to release that massive figure, but this is one figure which it has released. These states are Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Kerala, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Punjab, Sikkim, Tamil Nadu, Tripura, Uttarakhand, and West Bengal. These are the 14 states that have been offered. Corona Kavach is the insurance which has been proposed by the IRDAI, which is the regulatory body for Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. So this now with COVID-19 showing no signs of abatement, no signs of slowing down, this cover surely will become more and more popular with time to come. There is finally some sort of encouraging news when it comes to personal vehicles. So basically, two-wheeler personal vehicles have shown something of a growth for the month of August, but only at the wholesale level, not yet at the retail level. But at least there is some this thing. They have risen 14.2% overall the passenger vehicles, and two-wheeler sales have actually increased by 3% even at the retail level, which means that with the festive season upcoming, there is some sort of mood upswing. Hopefully, this has data has been released by the CM, which stands for Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. Right. Okay, Moody's, we spoke about how much Moody has predicted India's GDP shrinkage for the year. Moody has also, these bodies, they not just rate countries, they also rate companies and individuals. So when it comes to the rating of the company, they have recently rated Bharti Airtel. Bharti Airtel has actually been brought up from negative to stable level. Why is this? Moody's cites easing competition and 4G numbers, which are pretty strong for the Bharti Airtel group, and that is why they have been upgraded. So there's a Japanese company called Orix, which is set to buy 20% stake at Greenco Energy Holdings, which is into renewable energies. This 20% will amount to 980 crore rupees. So there's a business solutions company called Altisource, which is the Indian arm of the Luxembourg-based portfolio solutions group by the same name. They have decided to cut 100 jobs from India. Meanwhile, Faith stands for Federation of Associations in Indian Tourism and Hospitality. They have written to the Ministry of Tourism to remove what is called TCS, or tax collected at source, which is an extra levy on outbound travel. They feel that this is a regressive move. As it is, the industry is facing such troubles. So additional stops should have been put in to help them. Instead, this is a further punishment and further discouraging people from traveling. Okay, now a very important piece of news, probably the most important in the business pages today. This is about a report which has emerged from the DPIIT, which stands for Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. This department is part of the Ministry of Commerce, which is headed by Shri Piyush Goyal, the Minister for Commerce. So this releases a report every year on startups in India and how which state has the most business friendly environment for startups. Startups may not be the only way to judge whether so this index is not for how business friendly you are, only for startups, but definitely startups is an indication for how overall business friendly you are, because obviously new companies, they generate lots of new jobs, and if when they get a fairly stable regulatory environment, a stable environment, then they can also then they can bring other companies up as well. So 36,000 startups were recognized in the state of Gujarat, and for the second consecutive year, Gujarat has topped this ranking. There's a drug called granules. This has received the approval by the USFD, United States Food and Drug Administration. Root Mobile, which is a mobile company, of course, their IPO has been oversubscribed 74 times. Right, moving on finally to the sports pages, which is my favorite. Now, sports today is an exciting day because the English Premier League restarts, and as I said, it's hardly been out because of the cap due to the coronavirus pandemic. No football was played for several months. Once it returned, it was played almost continuously. So, only recently the Champions League final of the previous season finished, and now immediately you have a new season beginning. A couple of teams won't be in action, like Manchester United, because they have only recently played the latter stages of the Champions League. So there is a mandatory 3 to 4 week break for every team. So, and also there was the Nations League in between. So that is why a few matches will not be held, but 8 matches will be held in total out of the 10 over this weekend. The biggest game promises tonight to be Liverpool versus Leeds United. Leeds United, I'm so excited to watch them. It's been 16 years they've been in the top division. Um, when I started watching football in the late 90s, Leeds was actually one of the best teams, and they were an exciting young team. They did not have the stars that Manchester United, Arsenal, or even Liverpool had. But they had exciting players: Mark Viduka, Harry Kewell, Alan Smith, this guy, what's his name? Olivier Dacko, Ian Hart, Jonathan Woodgate, Rio Ferdinand, Paul Robinson. I remember what a team that was. Reached the Champions League and the UEFA Cup finals consecutive years, 2000 and 2001. Then they fell off badly. Massive financial crisis. They got relegated. They nearly came back up in another 2 years' time. Lost the playoff final. Since then, they've been languishing. They even had a spell in the third tier of English football, but now they are back under super manager Marcelo Bielsa. Marcelo Bielsa has extended his contract by a year at Leeds, and in fact, their first game back is against Liverpool of all teams. Liverpool just returned, just been crowned the champions for the 19th time, first time in 3 decades. So quite an interesting game between Jurgen Klopp and Marcelo Bielsa. That should be a chess game between two top managers. Mm, the Tour de France is ongoing right now. It's cycling's most prestigious event. Overall, 16 races, 16 stages are held in a year, every year. So 13 stages now gone. A Colombian by the name of Dani Martinez has is won the 13th stage. The overall leader, however, remains Primoz Roglic, who is from tiny Slovenia. He wears the yellow jersey. Yellow jersey is worn by the overall leader. So he leads now with only three stages to go. Australia has scored 294 in the first one-day international against England. England, of course, set to bat now. Uh, Glenn Maxwell and Mitchell Marsh scored 77 and 73 respectively. South Africa's cricket board has been overtaken by the Olympic body of the country, citing irregularities, financial irregularities, as well as in organizing. South Africa, you must understand, it's a country where cricket has long been associated as a white man game. Cricket and rugby, both of them. Football was seen more as a common man's game where blacks were dominant. But rugby and cricket over the last couple of decades, in the last decade especially, has seen a lot of quotas being added so that there is equitable distribution across the races. So there is now a mandatory few black players and colored players who are required to be in the cricket team and in the rugby team. It seems some of those norms may not have been met. I'm not really sure, but a couple of reasons why the Olympic board has now taken over. Rugby, by the way, they won the World Cup last year in spite of reservation, which does seem that affirmative reservation, is working very well in South African sports. South Africa won the Rugby World Cup in 95, then in 2007 with a largely white team. 2019 it was a mixed team. In fact, the captain was a man of color. So I can't recall his name, but it does seem to have worked well, these quotas in South Africa. Even among the whites, there are some differences. You know, the English speakers, they predominantly dominate the cricket team, historically at least. And the rugby team was long dominated by the Afrikaners. You know, they speak the Afrikaans language, which originates from Dutch, you can say. Majority are Dutch migrants. So yeah, there are some differences there as well, but that we can talk some other day. The US Open has reached the final stage for the women. So ex-winner Victoria Azarenka, who's a Russian, she has shocked by defeating Serena Williams. So she will be playing Naomi Osaka in the final. Naomi Osaka is from mixed Japanese and American origin. Azarenka is Russian. So they will be contesting in the final. Right, the Italian Grand Prix, or rather the Tuscan Grand Prix, is also going on. It's the second Grand Prix in Italy this year because because of the reduced number of because of the delays. So what and to reduce international travel, they just selected a few venues where more number of Grand Prix would be held. Rafael Nadal will return to action. He has been out of action for a while. He's preparing for the French Open. Before that, he's going to play the Rome Masters and in the Italian Open. Right. The Trinidad and Tobago Knight Riders have won the CPL or the Caribbean Premier League, which is the West Indies version of the IPL. Right. So that was pretty much it. I am more or less done with today's class. I'll leave the session open for a few minutes in case you have any questions. This is my code at the bottom. Do not hesitate. Uh, do use this code. You'll get a flat 10% off. No need to wait. Like, share, and subscribe to my session. I'm done for this weekend. No classes tomorrow. But Monday I'm going to restart my classes. So do join me for those classes. Right, I'll keep the session open for a few minutes in case you have any queries, any questions. Please feel free to ask. Okay, I think we can wrap up the session now. Sorry, I forgot to put on the earphone. We can wrap up the session, I think, right now. Thank you so much, guys. See you very soon and have an enjoyable, fruitful weekend of a lot of learning.